Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here to do one of the funnest tags of the year. And it's the mid-year book freakout tag where we answer questions about all the books that we have read so far this year. And it's just kind of like a wrap up of our year so far. And it's really, really fun. I think by now, how many books have I read? Let's see. 33 books this year. Let's just jump right in. The best book you have read so far this year. Okay, so I could pick one book for this answer, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick three, and the reason I'm picking three is because I've given 3 books this year so far gold stars. And you guys know it's super rare for me to give a gold star book or a gold star to a book. Last year I only gave 1 gold star out, and this year I've already given 3 gold stars out, which means like they make it to my favorites list on Goodreads and they're like amazing, amazing books. So I have picked 3 so far this year. So the first one I want to talk about is the first gold star that I have read this year, and it was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This book was so flippin' cute. I love this so much. It was one of those books that just makes you feel so happy to be like a reader, and it just reminds you of how much you love reading. Like, this book just made me so gosh darn happy, and I just loved the couple. It definitely has like that very realistic vibe with like how you meet somebody in the real world, you know what I mean? Like, you meet somebody and then you kind of like them, and then you kind of like, your relationship kind of builds naturally. It's not like really tropey, which I liked. It's very realistic, and it has like very realistic like conflicts that happen, and it was just a very well written, just realistic book. So this was my first 5-star read. My second 5-star read was In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. This book was so good. If you love memoirs and you just love reading about other people's life, this book was hands down the best memoir that I've read in a really long time. And this book just made me feel so grateful and just so thankful for where I live and like the life and the privileges that I've had in my life. And it just reminds you that not everyone has it as easy as you do. It's a sad book, and like, she went through really hard times, but it just makes you feel so grateful for your own life. And reading books like this just kind of act as a reminder to be extremely grateful. And I just think that she's a very incredible human. Like, the amount of languages that she's had to learn in her life just to survive. I'm like, why haven't I learned Spanish yet? Like, am I that lazy? Like, I need to get on the ball. Like, if this girl can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? Highly recommend it. I just think it's such an inspiring story, and it's very aspirational. Like, it makes you want to be a better person, if that makes sense. So highly recommend this one. And then my third gold star book of the year was a book I haven't talked about on my channel yet for a wrap-up video, but it's coming soon. And it is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, which I read on accident. Like, this was so random, and I bought Travis, which is the second book in the series, and somebody's like, you can't read that yet, you have to read Archer's Voice first. And I was like, really? And I didn't even know what this was about, really. I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, I'll pick up Archer's Voice. And somebody's like, no, you're gonna love it, like, it's a really good book. And I'm like, okay. So I pick it up. Oh my god, this is so good. Oh my god, it's so good. This is hands down another new favorite romance. Like, if you love a supportive couple that is just there for each other, that is like the best couple in the world, this is the couple that you want to read about. It is so amazing to watch, and there's like no bad communication in this book. There is nothing that makes you irritated in this book. Like, you are just so dang supportive of this couple because they're so supportive of each other. And it's realistic. I feel like the character arcs were really realistic. Like, the conflict that happened in this book was so realistic. Like, you know how sometimes conflicts in books are just irritating, and usually it's because of poor communication or assumptions or something like that, where you're just like, oh my god, if they would just talk. But this one was like super realistic, because the entire time I kept thinking, like, how's this gonna work? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, how, like, is he gonna like change? Like, what, how is this gonna work? And it was really awesome because I felt like it was a conflict that needed to be kind of discussed and overcome. And the way that she went about writing it was just really good. It was really realistic, and it was just like so amazing. Like, if you guys want a good romance that gives you all the feels in the world, this is hands down gonna be it for you. I've been recommending this book to everybody. Like, I'm like, you have to read Archer's Voice. You have to read Archer's Voice, because I feel like this is one of those romances that is like really difficult to dislike. It's almost impossible to dislike because the couple is so like good to each other, and I just loved it so much. So hands down a favorite book of the year. So the next question is best sequel that you've read so far this year. So So I've read a few sequels this year, not a ton. I think I've read 3 sequels this year. And I actually am very, I don't know if it's just like the series I am picking up or what, but I never, I feel like, have good luck with like the second book in a series. And I'm starting to think it's just me not liking second books in series, because every single one that I pick up I end up not liking, and it's just so frustrating for me because I feel like there could be good ones out there, but I'm just picking up the wrong series, if that makes sense. But the one book that I feel like is kind of the exception to this issue that I have is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is the second book to Part of Your World, which I just talked about, and it was super, super cute. There were just a few issues that I had with it, like assumptions and miscommunication. Kind of near the end, it kind of started to get on my nerves just a little bit, but that was literally the only thing that really bugged me too much about this book. And it was just really, really, really flippin' cute. So even though it wasn't perfect and I didn't give it 5 stars, it was still probably the best sequel that I've read, and it was still a really, really good sequel. So the next question is, new release you haven't read yet but want to. So this one is easy, and it is The Serpents and the Wings of Night. I feel like this is a pretty new release. I'm not gonna say it's brand new or anything, but I think it's pretty new. And I bought this because I had heard such amazing things about it. I heard a lot of people compare it to like the same type of vibes as A Court of Thorns and Roses. Not like it's the same tropes and the same like themes and like fantastical creatures or anything, but more so like it gives you the same feelings. And they also say it's really, really fast paced. Like Carissa Broadbent really knows how to write a story that is fast paced, that's not a lot of like lull time in it. And I need that in a fantasy author because I have a horrible attention span, and fantasies, if they're too slow, just lose me and I can't really enjoy them. So I heard that this is really, really fast paced, and I am really excited to read this. Like, I cannot wait to jump into this world because I heard it's so good. So the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So this is really easy, and it is what is it called? Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book in the Fourth Wing series. I don't know if it's gonna be a series or duology or what the like series is called, but it's the sequel to Fourth Wing, and I am loving Fourth Wing right now so far. I haven't finished it yet, but I cannot wait to read the next one as well, because so far I'm loving the characters, loving the world, loving the dragons, and I cannot wait to finish this book and let you guys know really what I think about it. In fact, I'm doing a reading vlog of me kind of reading the whole entire thing, and it's going to be spoilery so you guys can like hear my true thoughts about it, but so far so good, and I am already excited for the second book. So my biggest disappointment so far this year is gonna have to be Heart of the Sun Warrior by Sue Lynn Tan. As you guys know, I read The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and I actually really liked that book. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read this one, and I have to admit, I kind of hated it. And it's funny because I saw the Clockwork reader, Hannah, review these 2 books as well, and she said, oh, I really liked the first book, but I gave the second book 2 stars. And I was like, and that was before I read the second book, and I was like, 2 stars? Like, it can't be that bad. And like, I totally did not believe her, and I was kind of irritated that she gave it 2 stars even though I hadn't read it yet. I was like, it cannot be 2 stars, like, come on. And then I read it and I was like, oh my god, like, she was kind of right. It's like a 2-star read, and I was so gosh darn bored in this. The main character made me so mad. She was so irritating. She was such a like arrogant character, and she thought that she was like the only person that could save everybody all the time. Like, it was her job to save everybody. And even like some of the characters in the book kind of got annoyed with her. Like, there was one scene where her mom got annoyed with her because she tried to save her mom, but then she ended up making the situation worse than it already was because she just couldn't stop trying to save people, and she was like taking and putting herself into every single situation. Like, it was her job, and she's like, I'm the only one that can save everybody. And I'm just like, oh my god. She was so irritating. And then the love triangle in this was just drove me insane. It was so frustrating because she could not make a decision to save her life. And it's one thing when there's a love triangle that's written really, really well, but with this one, it was like she was leading on the 2 like love interests so bad to where it was almost like cringy and like mean. And I'm in my head, I'm like, if this was like switched, like reversed roles, right? And there was like a main guy and he was choosing between 2 girls, and he was leading on the girls in the same way, and the girls were like, oh, I love you, I'm like so obsessed with you, I'll do anything for you. And he's like leading them both on like the entire story. Like, we would all hate him as a character because it's just a crappy thing to do, especially when they're so obsessed with you, right? And I feel like a lot of times we give girl main characters a pass, but it's just kind of irritating to me, and I just don't like it when they lead characters on so flippin' bad. And then I kept thinking, like, why do they even like her so much? She's not even like that likable of a character. I don't know, it was just a frustrating book. Like I said, the first book was great, I gave it 4 stars, but the characters just all went downhill in this one, and I was just so flippin' disappointed with it. So I gave this 2 stars, and if I'm being honest, it probably could have been a little bit lower, but I give 1 star. It's extremely, extremely rarely. Usually I'll kind of stick to 2 unless it's like really problematic, but yeah, not my favorite. My biggest surprise. So the biggest surprise this year, this is one where I always feel like with this particular question, I always kind of like answer it a little bit differently than I feel like you're supposed to answer it. But for this one, I chose a book that I felt like I was completely expecting to love. And it is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And you guys know how I feel about this book. I'm not going to go too deep into it because you guys already know. But this is one of those books where I was like, oh, I'm going to like it. Like, I just already know I'm gonna like it. Like, I know it's gonna be at least a 4 or 5 star read. Like, and then I was so disappointed and I was so caught off guard at how much I didn't like it. And I was like, how did that happen? I was so surprised that I didn't like this. Okay, so the second book that I chose for this question, because I couldn't just pick one, was The Pisces by Melissa Broden. And this book really surprised me because actually while I was reading it, I was like, what the frick is this? Like, I was thinking it was so weird, and I was telling Travis about it, and I'm like, this is the weirdest flippin' book I've ever read in my life. Like, what the heck? I feel weird reading it sometimes. And then when I got finished with it, I was like, oh my god, that was 5 stars. Like, that was a 5-star read. Why do I feel like this is 5 stars? And in my head, I was like, I feel like I shouldn't give it 5 stars, but it was. And this book just surprised me because the entire time I was reading it, I was like, what the frick? And then all of a sudden it was a 5-star read. So this is hands down one of those books where I just wasn't expecting it at all. And it was the way that this was wrapped up and the way that she kind of incorporated like attachment styles into this book. Like, she tackled a really interesting topic in a really creative way that I really, really loved. And I think I just read this at a really, really good time because I was actually kind of getting into attachment styles right when I started reading this, and so I was kind of connecting the two, and that's why it worked so well for me. And I feel like she just did a really, really good job at kind of tackling that concept. Okay, so new favorite author. This one is really fun because I found 2 authors that I absolutely love this year, and I'm so excited to read more books by them. And the first one is Mia Sheridan, which is who wrote Archer's Voice. Now, I'm really excited to read more of her because I am in a romance book group on Facebook, and I was like, I need more characters like Archer. Like, I really loved his like brooding, quiet, kind of traumatized character who really, really needs the main character. He almost relies on her, and because of that, he's very protective of her, and she protects him in return because he's kind of like the silent brooding type. It's like this very, very specific like dynamic for this couple in this book, and I was like, I need more books like this. And everyone kept recommending more Mia Sheridan, so I think there's more books similar to this by Mia Sheridan. So she wrote this, and apparently she writes other books that are very similar to this, so I'm really excited to kind of explore some of those books. And if you guys saw that I added a whole bunch of like random romances to my TBR on Goodreads, it's because those were the books that people were recommending that were similar to this one. So, and a lot of them were Mia Sheridan, so I'm really excited to kind of check out more of her books. And then my other new favorite author is Abby Jimenez. Like, I've read 2 books by her that I really, really liked. I think she's great at writing romances. I love how her romances wrap up. Like, I always feel all the feels when she does wrap up her romances, which I think is great because I don't always feel that way with romances. And I feel like I feel similar to her books as I do with Tessa Bailey, and I often feel that way with Tessa Bailey. So definitely Abby Jimenez. I cannot wait to read more books by her. I have one up on my shelf actually that I still have to read, and I just am excited to read more Abby Jimenez. I think she's going to be definitely a new favorite romance author for me. You guys, I keep using the same books to answer these questions, and I feel really bad, but I can't help it. Like, this happened to me last time I did this tag. I felt like I kept answering the same books, but it's really hard not to when you have like very specific books that you absolutely loved. Like, you want to pick them for like every answer, but. So the next one is newest fictional crush. Archer and Daniel. Like, I can't deny it. These are my 2 new favorite crushes. I love them. They're the best love interests ever, and that's all I'm gonna say. And if you haven't read these yet, just read them, and you'll totally understand what I mean. So the next question is newest favorite character. I'm gonna say Bree from Archer's Voice because I loved how supportive she was of Archer. I just thought she was such a sweet, sweet, sweet character, and she was just so She's exactly what I want in a female character. She never made assumptions. She never like thought of him as a bad person or anything. Like she always had faith in Archer the entire book, and she never gave up on him, which was so perfect for the type of character that Archer was. And that's why I loved her as a character, is because she was exactly what Archer needed to kind of make the changes that he did, and she was such an amazing character. But then the other character that I absolutely loved was what was his name? Jake from Yours Truly. And like I said a million times, the reason I love him as a character so much is because of his social anxiety and kind of how she kind of portrayed that within him, and how he really, really worked to become better and like work through some of his problems, some of his issues. And I just really, really liked him as a character. He was super, super nice and treated Bree with so much kindness, which I liked as well. And he was just such a great, well-developed character that was like really, really nice to read about. You know what I mean? So I really, really liked how she wrote his character. A book that made you cry. Okay, so as you guys know, I don't cry in books. I haven't really cried in any books this year either. I'm just not a book crier. I don't know why, it's just not really my thing. But I have to say in this book, there was one little scene in this book, and I think it's because I'm a mom, that I kind of got a little teary-eyed on. But it's kind of like, it was just that feeling of like intense emotion in the chest, maybe a little glaze on the eyes. But it was definitely one of those very intense, like, emotional scenes where I was like, oh my god. And like I said, I think it's because I'm a mom. And it's from the book Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, and I gave this book 5 stars. It was really, really good. And it is about like a mother and a daughter. I don't want to give it away because I feel like it would be really easy to give away if I talk too deeply about it, but it does kind of have topics that revolve around mothers and daughters and stuff like that. And so there was a scene that I was just like, oh man, like how would that feel? And I just kind of started thinking about it as a mom, and I think it just kind of like triggered something in me where I was like, oh. So I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna say that this is gonna make you bawl or anything, but I did have a moment. So the next question is, a book that made you happy. Okay, so I'm gonna say The Simple Wild, and this is by K.A. Tucker. And this book I gave 4 stars. I really like this book, and the reason why I feel like this book made me so happy was because of the setting. And I remember saying after I reviewed this book that I loved the setting so much because it felt so vivid. And I remember just wanting to sit in this novel, and I did say that as well. I just wanted to like sit in this novel and hunker down and just be in this world because it was so vivid and just a unique setting, and I could just picture everything so well. And I loved all of the characters in this novel as well. Like all the characters were so perfectly fleshed out, and I felt like I made a really strong connection to all of the characters in this book. And I actually want to read the rest of the series just simply because this book made me feel so happy being in it while I was reading it. So hands down, this book was one of those books that just made me happy while I was reading it. The process of reading it was just really, really enjoyable. So The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. If you haven't read it, it takes place in Alaska, and it's just a great setting. The most beautiful book that you have acquired this year. Okay, so I have a few books that I could have picked for this question because I was signed up for the Bookish box for like 4 or 5 months, and so I got a few really, really beautiful like special editions. But I have to say this was my favorite out of all of them, and this is Between Wrath and Mercy by Jess Weisskopf, and I got this from the Bookish box, and I already read this book actually before this came out, so I'm not going to end up probably reading this one, but I love this. So this is the cover. I love the purple. Purple's one of my favorite colors, and it has this beautiful spine, this beautiful back on it, and the sprayed edges are just so gorgeous. We have this beautiful art on the inside. It has Emmeline and whatever his name is, like I can't remember it right now. But I love the art, and the art is actually the same on the back as well. Beautiful book. I absolutely love this, and I'm gonna keep it forever because I actually really did love the first book of that series. Okay, so question 13 is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? Okay, so I have a top 10 books I want to read in 2023. I do this every single year, and I still have a few that I have to read, I'm not gonna lie. I want to read all of them. I've never actually read my entire list, and this year I really want to do that, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books that I still have to read off of this list. The first one is The Firekeeper's Daughter. The second is Under the Bayou Moon, which is actually on my TBR for this month. Piranesi, Spin the Dawn, and and I put both books because I would like to read both if I can. And then The Lost Ticket and My Best Friend's Exorcism. So those are still books that I have to read this year. Favorite book to movie adaptation. So this one is hard for me because I don't watch adaptations really ever. And I just don't get all that excited for them unless they are like my all-time favorite books. Like I know Blake Crouch is coming out with Dark Matter really soon and I'm excited for that one because that's one of my favorite books. But I just don't watch adaptations really hardly ever. But I think the one that I was the most excited about watching, that I still haven't watched yet, is Daisy Jones and the Six. I give that book 3 stars, but I always thought it would make a really good show because of the music. And I didn't listen to the audiobook, and I've heard that the audiobook is way better, and maybe that's why I didn't give it 5 stars. But I was really excited for the show because I just feel like the show, you would get more of the vibes, right, if you watched it as like an adaptation. So I still really want to watch Daisy Jones and the Six. I just haven't done it yet because you guys know how I am. I just don't watch a lot of TV. But that's probably the one that I was the most excited for. Like I was excited to see the trailers and all that kind of thing. So probably that one. Alright guys, so that is it for this video. I hope it was kind of fun to watch. Let me know in the comments what your all-time favorite book so far has been this year. I'd be very curious to know what you guys really have liked this year. And also let me know what your all-time favorite character is so far this year. I love characters and I love it when I find like a new favorite character, whether it just like relates to me really well or I can like see myself in a character. I'd be really curious to see like who your guys' new favorite character is. So that is it, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!